Hear that? Nothing? Me neither. But that's the perfect spot for your company's name to step into the spotlight. Become an underwriter for As You Mic It and let every episode be your curtain call. Slip a note to podcast@pashakespeare.org for more information.
Artistic director. And as always...
You forgot for a second.
Who am
You're like,
I?
wait, am I? Wait.
It says so.
You almost said Ron Burgundy.
Amazing. All right. Welcome to As You Mic It, the official podcast of Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival. I'm Jason King-Jones, Artistic Director here at PSF, and as always, I'm joined by Kim Carson, our Director of Education and Community Engagement.
Hello.
And Connie Behringer, our Associate Producer.
Hello.
And this season, we've been talking a lot about legacy, what we inherit, what we choose to protect, and what we pass forward. But legacy doesn't stand alone. It lives inside community. So for Act 2, today, we're going to be speaking with Bill George to talk about what it means to build artistic communities from the ground up, to gather artists and to create spaces where people belong. And in a peek behind the curtain, we'll be talking about first rehearsals and how we build community here at Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival every summer. But before we get there, we want to look at our own season through this lens. What kind of communities are inside these plays? Who builds these communities and who chooses the communities that are being built? So let's start this conversation in Memphis at Sun Record Studios. Here, we're going to focus a little bit on the Million Dollar Quartet. We've got Sam Phillips, who was the founder of Sun Records, and the folks that he's choosing to gather to be a part of Sun Records, in the room where all these artists are being jam-packed together. Now, of course, Million Dollar Quartet focuses on one moment in time that did happen in history. We've got a photo of it, in fact, when Carl Perkins and Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash all played together one night at Sun Records. And about this single moment as it's kind of extrapolated into a theatrical performance. But so then in that, there's this community. There's a community of musicians. There's a community of artists. There's a community that's kind of coming together and tearing apart kind of at the same time for Million Dollar Quartet. And then what we get to do in building a community is the artists that we get to gather in order to tell this story for our audiences this summer.
These artists were people who really existed and who were incredibly popular.
Yeah.
And are incredibly popular today. There is an entire community of Elvis fans out there who dress like him and go to impersonation concerts and own his merch and, collect the things and go to his house and all of those things. Yeah. Same thing with Johnny Cash, same thing, So it's interesting to bring those communities together, the fan bases of all these different artists into the same place. I hope that community of Elvis comes and sees the show and sits next to those community of huge, I love Johnny Cash, huge Johnny Cash fans. So in that, there's this really interesting blending of musical communities that I really think is interesting. But about the actors themselves, have they all worked together before? Is that a built-in community already or some not?
Dominique
Scott.
Dominique Scott. I always do that. I was I only talk about people as their first names. So Dominique Scott is our music director. Yeah. He actually had some wonderful recommendations for people that he had worked in the past or people that he wants to work with. And Jim Helsinger, our director, is also really familiar with this work. Yeah. And so he had a bunch of folks that he really wanted to work with for this production as well. Right. And so between the two of them, we had this great brain trust that we could start putting down more specifics on what we want our quartet to look like. And we can work with people that have worked with other folks before. Part of the way we find folks is not only saying, oh, these people are great, but then on top of that, we think, how will they interact as a company and how do they fit into Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival as part of the company? And so a lot of these people have worked together and are going to be capable of creating a beautifully cohesive sound. You know, Jason, just to go back a little bit, when you were talking about Sam Phillips as the founder of Sun Records, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how this moment came to be and the sort of the curation and bringing together of these different people.
Right. Well, I mean, Sam Phillips, running Sun Record Studio in Memphis, in a converted garage, he's creating, he's a hit maker, right? He was a person who was discovering new talent and launching their careers. And we see, at this time when we see Elvis, he's actually already had left Sun Record Studios. He's working for Capitol Records, but he's back for the night. He's been kind of invited back, and it's a big deal that Elvis is showing up. And then Johnny's also showing up too. Yeah. And Johnny is still on the Sun Records label. Of course, one of the things that we learn is he's looking to also make a break for it, because Sun Record Studios is limited on how it's able to support its artists. It's really good at discovering the hit makers, but some of those guys seem to get too big for this company and start looking for the big players that are not based in Memphis in a little garage, but in Los Angeles or in New York, and Capitol Records is that big company. What Sam keeps wanting to do is, of course, keep these guys close to him, not because it makes financial sense, which I think, of course, for him it does, but there's some purity that he's trying to create in these artists. And he is really worried that he's seeing in Elvis a guy who's already having to sell himself out a little bit and losing some of that identity that makes him a real core transformative artist. And of course, the beauty of in this play, we're able to step back in time and see the moment that Sam, discovers Elvis and challenges him to actually really play the music that he's really meant to be playing. And it's that kind of mentorship and guidance that he's able to kind of like strip away all the crap around what maybe a performer is trying to do and trying to please an audience to try to get to their core essence. And that's what Sam was so known for and so good at. However, then we've got Johnny who wants to be producing a gospel record, and Sam's like, that thing's not going to sell. And so that's one of the reasons that Johnny's looking to go elsewhere. But Sam really was that kind of curator who could see in these artists, these young artists, and these people are, some of them are just on the verge of greatness, or we've seen Elvis has kind of stepped on and kind of moved on, but he sees in the Jerry Lee Lewis and Dominique, not only as our music director, he's also playing Jerry Lee Lewis in this show. He sees in these characters and these individual people the possibility of what can come and how the music can continue to change. We think about this music like because it is now music well into the past, music of our parents, grandparents' time. But this music was being created for the first time. This stuff had never been heard before. Sounds that had never been made public like this.
To a mass audience.
To a mass audience, yeah. Now, of course, some of these sounds are sounds that are coming from the sharecroppers, the farmers, the people of color in the community. They're being heard in small places, but they've not been recorded. They've not been set down. They've not been they've not been brought out into a wider audience. And when I meant wider with a D, not with a T. But I think in many ways it's both at this time, right? It is a wider and a whiter audience. And that's what Sam is doing, and that's the kind of curating that he's creating here at Sun Records, and what he wants to try to keep pure. I think what we ultimately learn, these people kind of, many of them move on, but Sam Phillips really was the hit maker.
Yeah, and when you think about it from a music perspective, we have Elvis, we have Jerry Lee Lewis, we have Johnny Cash, and we have Carl Perkins, and they have the Sun Records sound, you know, and now we call it rockabilly or or something like that. But there was a definite collection of sounds that are very not similar, but they strike the same vein, and they appeal in a way that is so exciting and so much fun. And that really was the Sun Records sound for a long period of time. And a lot of the other larger record studios were having such challenges duplicating that, which is why they looked to see what is Sam Phillips doing and who can we take from him.
Yeah, and in fact, we learn in this story that Elvis is even interested potentially in trying to get Sam to come with him to Capitol in order to try to keep the music pure. But I think Sam's desires are different than what Elvis was looking for at the time. But it is, and I think that's what we get to see in this production is this uniting of all these different sounds and desires and future plans and egos all collapsing together in this space and working together to create music. And of course, the beauty of this is these actors are also these incredible musicians. They're playing the guitars or the piano, and we've got a couple of guys on bass and on drums as well. So we've got a live band that's happening on stage. And, for the first few days of rehearsal, it's going to be Dominic and our drummer and our bass player just working on making sure to really get the foundation of all these songs, so that then when we bring in our singers and our guitarists on top of all of that, they've got that foundation, because the sound is such an important thing, and they're creating the band. And every time this company of artists come together, we're literally creating a band.
Yeah. What I'm finding fascinating, and this is sort of going back to what we were talking about before, is that there is a subculture of actor musicians that exist. Yeah. And when we were saying, we were looking into this person, or we really want this person to read for Johnny Cash, there was a little excitement because people were saying, I've always wanted to work with him. And it seems like they all kind of know each other, and they kind of have this shared experience that doesn't exist in a lot of other different plays,
Yeah, I mean, it's a subgenre of artists, and we think about people who are triple threats. And triple threats are people who can act and dance and sing, and that they're excellent at all of these things. I think with this show, you get their threat is their musical capabilities are so top notch. They're excellent guitar players, excellent piano players, and they can act and they can sing. And that's what we're looking for. So that is a subgenre. And yeah, they know of each other, and they, shared lists. Jim Helsinger, who is directing the piece, is artistic director at Orlando. He produced Million Dollar Quartet. He didn't direct it down there, but he produced it. So he knew the artists that they had. And some of those folks are actually coming up, and some of those folks recommended other people. And then, of course, when we got a hold of Dominique was somebody that did not work on the production down in Orlando, but that Jim had considered. And so it's a lot of
kind of its own community.
It is its own community.
Because I mean, like, when you're thinking about how specific an ask these characters are,
yes,
you have to be able to play the instrument. You have to kind of sound and look like the historical person. You have, it is a really specific group of people. It's not like millions of people out there are able to do this piece.
Well, I mean, and this is the one fascinating, is when we were looking at different artists to play these different roles, we weren't necessarily looking and saying, oh, this person does a good impersonation.
Oh, not at all.
We wanted to make sure that, does this person capture the energy, and does this person capture just the overall spirit of young Elvis or of young Johnny Cash? Is their vibe right?
Yeah. And so then, and part of that is like, how are they going to play together? Because they're going to have to be a band, and they've got to listen to each other and give and take, like a band actually does and needs to. So that's a part of the community that gets created with Million Dollar Quartet.
Yeah.
And then let's shift over and think about another kind of community that happens. And I want to go to our Play on Community Tour production of As You Like It. As You Like It, one of the really interesting things about this particular play is it starts in the city and it goes into the country. And in the city, we have a duke, and we learn quickly, early on, from a couple of different people, that the duke who's currently in charge deposed his brother and kicked him out. And what we also hear about is that there are people who are leaving the court and also going into the country. And of course, then ultimately our main characters, Rosalind and Orlando, find themselves, for different reasons, also having to flee the city and find themselves in the forest of Arden. And then we discover that in the forest of Arden, there's this thriving community that's happening, and it's somewhat idyllic. And it's being all the folks who kind of left the city are all kind of collecting together. Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about what that vibe is like based on?
Yeah, there's this really wonderful moment in the play. I think that encapsulates the idea really well. Yeah, and that is when Orlando arrives in the forest, and he's starting to get really hungry and tired, and he's like looking for food, and he comes across the Duke and a couple of the lords sitting around, and they have food and they have stuff, and Orlando I think takes out a knife, and he's like, he's ready to to rob them, basically, because he's desperate at this point. And they turn to him and they're sort of like, if you're hungry, man, sit down and eat. Like, come sit with us. Like, you don't have, like, put your knife away. Like, it's all good. Yeah. And he's like, oh my God, I've never experienced this before. Thank you for your kindness. And of course, he gets pulled into the fold and all of that then as well. But I think that really encapsulates it, that the competition that they knew in the court, the sort of pomp and circumstance, the sort of attitudes that they found in the court, they could lose all of that in the country. Yeah. And sort of enjoy themselves, enjoy each other, and enjoy nature. There's a lot of nature talk in the play that's really beautiful.
Absolutely. Speaking of, we know that he's known as Duke Senior, as in the older brother, the older Duke. We don't really ever know what his name is. And we don't really know what kind of a Duke he was. We see him now when he's in the forest. And the first time we see him, we hear him say this. And so if you'll indulge me. Now, my co-mates and brothers in exile, hath not old custom made this life more sweet than that of painted pomp? Are not these woods more free from the peril of the envious court? Here feel we but the penalty of Adam, the season's difference, as the icy fang and churlish chiding of the winter wind, which when it bites and blows upon my body, even till I shrink with cold, I smile and say, this is no flattery. These are counselors that feelingly persuade me what I am. Sweet are the uses of adversity, which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, wears yet a precious jewel in his head, and this our life, exempt from public haunt, finds tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. I would not change it.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so beautiful.
He's like, let's just go camping, right? Like,
I want to hang out with that guy. Yeah.
I sometimes wonder if he was actually like a real jerk in the court and like deserved to get kicked out. But now he's out in the forest and just like, man, this is great.
This is so much better.
This is so much better.
Yeah.
When I think about all of this, this creation of community in the forest and in this idyllic sort of semi-utopian state, my brain really goes to the idea that of chosen family, and that is something that's really sort of shaped a lot of my worldview now that I'm a little older.
Right.
I think about. People have these different relationships with their family, and they have these different relationships with those around them that they're forced into. And then we think about when we hit a certain age and when we have a certain amount of agency, that's when we get to start choosing the people that we're going to be around and choosing the people that we really care about. Yeah. And when Bill and I first got married, we started talking, and one of the big things in our vows was that, we feel blessed to have found each other as our chosen family. And that's the one person that, you have to work with to make sure that relationship moves on and continues, because that doesn't just, it's not just as is, Right. And so you really have to make sure that, you protect and love your chosen family. Yeah. So, I keep thinking about that when I think about this, the Forest of Arden and things like that.
I love that.
I think part of that, thinking about that and thinking about why Rosalind cares so much about dressing up as Ganymede, and also then taking the time to teach Orlando how to be the man she needs him to be, how to like be the husband for a character like Rosalind. It's kind of her own way of saying like, hey, if we're gonna, like, I'm already kind of in love with you, but if I'm going to live with you for the rest of my life, you've got to know exactly what you're getting into, and you've got to be ready for me. And so there's a kind of teaching, and of course Orlando, who says from the very beginning that he had no education. He's been kind of confined to his own his own family's property and wasn't able to go to school, doesn't really know anything. When he goes out to prove himself, he has to prove himself by wrestling, because he just doesn't know the matters of the heart or even of the mind necessarily. And so Rosalind takes some time to teach him, but it's about creating that chosen family. Now, not just to say, like, not everybody in the forest thinks it's great, right? Like there's like Jaques, who is struggling, and Touchstone, who is a court jester, who's like, what do I do out here? Right? Everything I learned how to survive in environment A, and now I'm in environment Z, and I don't even know how to function. I can poke fun at everything, but he has this great scene with Corin, just like, how do you like, Corin's like, how do you like this? Like, well, I like it and I hate it. And it's great and it's terrible.
Well, that it's not the court, it's great. But that it's the forest, it stinks. And that it's, it's like, that it's quiet, it's great. That it's quiet, it stinks. It's like he has this really wonderful,
he's not going to survive the apocalypse on his own.
And yet that chosen family thing that you're talking about, he chooses to go with Rosalind and Celia, and they create this little friendship. They already have a friendship, but they create this little mini family that they travel around with.
They do, and they buy a house that they take advantage of it pretty quickly, and they find that there's a place for sale, and they gobble it up, and they decide to kind of settle out in the country, and they choose to build this community as opposed to the one that didn't necessarily want them or was suspicious of Rosalind because of her position with the former Duke. Now they're in a new space. They can set their own terms. They can create their own community. And that actually does remind me a little bit of when we get into Act 3, when we talk a little bit about the building of community, the idea of leaving the city and coming into the country, I think is something very much that a lot of our artists think about when they come out here to Central Valley for the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
We are Arden.
For many people, we are. We're Arden with fire pits, cornfields. Moving on a little bit into some of the other communities, I want to jump ahead. I want to jump past Shakespeare, and I want to think about the community that is being built in the Hill District of Pittsburgh in August Wilson's The Piano Lesson.
Right.
Now, this is a different kind of community. This is a community that, speaking of traveling, these are not folks who traveled from the city to the country. These are folks who traveled in the opposite, really. They traveled from the South, from their background as families of former enslaved people and farmers and sharecroppers. They're part of the Great Migration and moved from the South, many of them from Mississippi, from the families that we're meeting in the Piano Lesson, and they're moving into the Hill District of Pittsburgh, and they're creating their own community.
Doker being the sort of family historian, and sort of holding on to that story and being able to tell their family story through the generations, and then in hopes that the next generation, they hear the story from Doker, and now they'll be able to share it with their children and their children's children moving forward. And that sense of community and connection to the ancestors and those that came before us, I feel is so beautifully explored in this play. Yeah. And it's very sad in moments, and it's really lovely in other moments. It's all the things, right? And so Doker sort of serves as my pinpoint on community in this play in a way, because he is the sort of family storyteller, the historian. You know?
And it's fascinating in The Piano Lesson, the family that we meet that are all living in the Hill District, and that's Bernice with her uncle Doker, and Maritha, Bernice's daughter. They're the ones who have been living in this house or apartment, this place in the Hill District, and then then at the beginning of the play, her brother, Boy Willie, comes in with Lyman. They've got a truck full of watermelons that they brought up from Mississippi. They want to sell it. The truck took ages to get it up here, and they also, Boy Willie wants to sell the piano that is in the house right now that has a history to it, as we've explained in the past, in previous episodes. And then there's also Whining Boy, who's Lyman's brother, so another uncle who has been a musician traveling about. He travels about, and Doker travels about. Doker works on the railroad, so we see him when he's home, but he also works on the railroad, so he still is connected to the larger world. And then Whining Boy, who has been a musician and traveling around, and he descends on the house as well. All these people are not from Pittsburgh. They're from all over, but they're all in this place, all trying to make a life for themselves. And we also meet Avery, who is currently a preacher. He was also down in Mississippi before he found the Lord and found a new vocation. He's trying to make a life for himself in Pittsburgh as well. We're seeing all these people in 1936 during the Great Depression in this area of Pittsburgh, all trying to create a future for themselves, and they were all kind of leaning on each other in order to make that happen, sharing living space, sharing food, sharing that bottle of liquor that they know that Doker has that he's not really willing to share, but has to share because all the family shows up. Whatever that is, they're all kind of sharing of resources. and helping each other as they're all moving forward into hopefully will be a brighter future here in the city, as opposed to the life that they had down in Mississippi. But they still sound a little bit like they're from the South. Right. They still have practices and customs that are still very much of the South. They are still feeling very much like transplants in this larger city, this larger community.
But one of the things that I was thinking about when we're talking about piano lesson is August Wilson's use of sort of the work songs.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And as they're all congregating at Doker's house, Boy Willie's not planning on staying. Lyman's not planning on staying. They're going to go back. Or actually, Lyman's actually going to stick around maybe.
I mean, he's not going back down south.
He's not going back down south. He doesn't have a future for himself down there anymore.
Right.
But what ties them together, even coming from separate places, even looking at Whining Boy coming in, is that they have that ability to come together with those work songs and sing those work songs together, because they have that common thread that is from their past, is from their community.
I mean, that Parchment Farm song, that's not just a work song. That's a prison song.
That's
right?
a prison song.
And what we learn, and one of the things that's so layered about August Wilson is in hearing all these guys sing this song because they know it, we also finally understand things that aren't said out loud. We understand that they all served time on Parchment Farm. And that they all know this song. It's a part of their history. And it's and they find the way to kind of to find some life and some joy in what certainly was not a joyous time. Yeah. That song does that. They also have, of course, a whole shared history that we hear bits and parts of. And Doker, of course, is that historian that shares a little bit of it to the people who need to hear that history. The audience hears as much as they need in order for the narrative to come through. But there's a real deep sense of history and of common shared experiences that everybody in this family has, that the more you dig into the play, the more you understand just how deep this history is and how complicated it is.
Well, and there's a lot to unpack in there, but I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this is August Wilson doesn't feel the need to explain any of it. No, he's telling the story, and the audience knows it or they don't know it. But this is not what he's using as necessarily a teachable moment. You know?
No. Yeah, absolutely not. No, it's one of the beautiful things about understanding the century cycle is the real rich history that kind of comes from reading or witnessing all 10 of August Wilson's plays, and Piano Lesson just being one of them that's planted in the 1930s. There's a different one for each of the decades, that they tell a much broader, more complicated, more complex story. But at no point does August Wilson try to explain to an outside audience what they should be knowing. They're going to have to do that work themselves.
Right.
Moving from the piano lesson to another culture that's created, and another community that's created, I want to focus on the community of Janeites, the community of absolute Jane Austen nerds, and the celebration of the work of Jane Austen that we get to experience through the complete works of Jane Austen abridged. Now, Kim and I just spent some time with our Bard and Beyond book club reading and talking about this particular play. So Kim, I'd love for you to kind of take it away here.
Hi. Okay. So I had this wonderful experience this weekend. I had a very small book club, just a few people, but we had this really wonderful conversation about all kinds of things. But this one fella who was not really introduced to Jane Austen at all. I think maybe at some point he saw Sense and Sensibility, like in a movie or a play at some point. But that's really all the experience he had had. And he said after seeing the play, he was like, I felt like saying thank you. Like I felt like I was brought into something that I wasn't part of before. And now I want to read all of Jane Austen's books. He was really excited by it. Yeah. He felt like it brought him into a community that already existed, like with open arms, So I just wanted to share that. I thought that was really cool. But the Janeites, this is a broad community that exists, and there are people who love this work and they unite over this work and they dress up in the period outfits and it's a whole thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah. When I was talking with Jessica Bedford, one of the playwrights of this play and also the director this summer, she had said, well, I was talking with some folks from Jasna, and she kept going on like I knew what Jasna was. And, it's like, oh, the Jane Austen Society of North America. Apparently they have huge conferences and they all get together and they actually do discuss things that are going on and really just celebrate the work of Jane Austen and how it relates to them now. And I think that that's fantastic. So, I mean, it is important, Kim, to know, are you getting Regency wear?
I will not be getting Regency wear, although as much as I would love to.
Fair.
I probably won't.
I think Connie was fishing for you to say yes so that she could say, I am too.
No,
yes,
everybody
Connie,
knows that I am. You know what? Y'all, if y'all don't stop, I'm going to wear my Uhura dress, okay? I'm going to completely bring I'm going to bring the Trekkers into this one.
Talk about that. So, but because there is a celebration, not only of Jane Nights, but there's a celebration of nerd culture in this play.
Yes.
And so you're talking about you're going to bring out your Trekkie. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I'm happy to talk about that. So I'm obsessed with Trek. I mean, it could be the original series or the Next Generation or even, Discovery. I love it all. And frankly, part of that is because when I first started watching Star Trek, when it was on reruns when I was a little kid, there was Uhura, who was a woman who was not white, who was smart, who was beautiful, and is someone who was not the norm, and yet she was completely normal in this little utopian society that they had. We had a Sulu, who was this Asian man who was part of the cast, who was this miraculous fighter, and he was just brilliant and such a strange, wonderful way of speaking. And I loved it. And that was part of my childhood. And I could look at this and they have this great society where there are white people and black people and Asians all getting together. And there's Vulcans as well, because as you do. And, they have this world, this society where people are just getting along because they do, not because they're told to or because they're in, there's a melting pot enforced on them. This is something that I thought this is going to be something that I want when I'm older, because I didn't really have that growing up, because, early 80s, early 90s, it was still not a very nice time to be Asian in an all-white community. So, when I saw Star Trek and I saw this miraculous place, this future that was the Federation, I thought, ooh, I want in.
Yeah.
And I started by getting a dress. So, I much later, I went to a nerd convention and I met Uhura.
You did?
Yeah. And Nichelle Nichols, I mean, she was amazing. And she was so delightful and so beautiful. Great. And so, I mean, it was just that one brief moment, but I got to tell her how much she meant to me, as just how much her existence meant to me, even more so than anything else. She really was such an inspiration to me, just seeing her. So yes, there is this nerd culture that exists because we celebrate and we really embrace these weird cultures that pop up. And so, it's not just us playing dressed up. It's us really saying, yes, this is a message that we want to carry on to the next generation. You see what I did there?
I saw that.
Next generation. So, I mean, I still have my kid sitting there and he's, I'm just like, oh, you need to watch this episode. You really need to pay attention. This is a good one, and we watch all of them. And, I think just it is a gateway culture to other nerd cultures. There's many, many more nerd cultures that I'm a part of, but that one's up there on my list.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Connie. And the question that I have for you is thinking about a community that you create based on shared passion or like something that you align yourselves. Now, what we have communities of, in Million Dollar Quartet, these people align themselves because they love this music and they can express themselves musically. The characters in As You Like It, they're united around this shared location in the sense that they can finally have some freedom. We talk about, in the piano lesson, they're united because they've all migrated up from the South into a new city, and they're uniting together together in order to share resources and move their families and their lives forward into the future. And then with Jane Austen, we've got this community that's celebrating around a shared cultural fascination, a shared love for the literature, a shared the liberation that it gives women to be able to speak their minds, all of that. Yeah. In thinking about that, and thinking about the way that we create a community and our own culture, our own community, Connie, what does it mean for you in how we cast our shows, how we bring together a community from different backgrounds, different experiences, different ethnicities and cultures? What is it like for you in your casting role when you think about the community that we're starting to form here at PSF?
Mm-hmm. You'd like to say that their artistry is what is the only thing that you're looking at, but the reality is it's not. When they come into an audition, I am looking at their energy and I'm thinking, how authentic are they? What kind of energy are they bringing into the room? Yeah. Is this a person that I think that maybe Akeem wants to spend the next 3 weeks with? Yeah. Because Akeem is, friend of the family, and he's been around, friend of the family, like PSF family. Festival, yeah. And he's been around here so long that, I do have him in the back of my mind thinking like, would they get along with Akeem? And because frankly, that is a part of it, because we do want to curate a beautiful experience for everybody who's here, because we do want to have a really healthy company. And so we want to think about those things. And we want to think about, how quickly will they learn, and how quick, we do check references from people because we do want to know, are they quick to learn? Are they going to be able to do their job in such a way that they can be a joy to work with? We want to set everybody up for success, and we want to give them the best opportunity to shine. And, that means that sometimes folks are right for our organization and sometimes they might not be. We think about who we've had before, and we think, what kind of energy did they bring in, and do we want them back? And more often than we want everybody back. Everybody, there's so many people that, we love, and, there's just not enough roles for everybody in one summer, which doesn't mean that we're not going to keep them right in our mind to have them back again and again. So those are parts of the things that we think about, because we are trying to not only create a community that exists during the summer, but we try and think about it as something that helps sustain us throughout year after year after year. And we're thinking about all those things.
We're also thinking about how we're including everybody, and we're thinking about our diversity in our company. I'm thinking about, who's coming to see the show, and are they seeing themselves represented on stage? You want to talk a little bit more about that as well, Connie?
Yeah. My first season here, and you were directing the last 5 years, and you brought on Chani Worley to be the role of Kathy. Yeah. And Chani had this amazing ability to sing and to really embody the role. But at the same time, I wasn't separated from the fact that I'm seeing an Asian American person on stage. And when I saw them on the stage, I was able to put myself into the story in a way that I hadn't been able to put myself into any stories before that, because seeing someone who looked like me helped me forget that this is not a white person's story. And I got to look at it and say, this is a story that I can relate to, even if I'm not, in that relationship. Seeing Chani on the stage made me feel more a part of the theater community than I think. It had an impact that's different in being told that I'm part of the theater community. The impact was, I can see that I'm not the only one. And that's a big deal for me.
Yeah. So, representation really matters. Yeah. We've heard that so many times, but it's really true.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really, really grateful to see them. And I was really grateful that was my first season here.
So if I can ask, what does
Sure.
that mean for you to do as the person who's responsible for casting at PSF? When you're thinking about the community that we are helping to assemble, how does that experience impact the choices you make, the people that you put in front of directors, et cetera?
Yeah. It's twofold, really. I need to find the best person. And that's the first thing I think of.
Okay.
I look and see who are the collection of actors that we have and where do they fit into what we're doing. But at the same time, part of me is colorblind in that kind of casting, because if in certain cases, like Million Dollar Quartet, we're not doing colorblind casting. And that's part and parcel with, who the characters are.
Of course, and we're not doing that with pianists either.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But in cases where we have Romeo and Juliet, we have Moriarty, we have complete works of Jane Austen Abridged, we have the freedom to just look at everybody who's in front of us. I want to make sure that we're not just looking at a homogenous group of actors.
It's less, I think, color, like just based on what I've heard you say about it and you say about it, it's less about colorblind casting and more about conscious casting.
Yeah.
That our world looks and feels a certain way.
Right.
And there are people of all shapes and sizes, people of all colors, people of all cultures, people with different accents, there's all kinds of people in our world and in our community. Yeah. And that's what we want to reflect on our stages because we want people from our community, all kinds of people from our community that exist to come to our theater and sit down and watch something.
Yes, absolutely.
That resonates with them.
Right.
In a real way. I think about it a lot with education.
Yeah.
The Willpower Tour.
Yes.
We're very conscious of diversifying the cast because we're in all kinds of schools and we want people to see it, young people to see it and go, this is for me. This is the future of our community and our world.
Yeah.
Not the past, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
In
We're not,
certain ways.
And it's really important for our audience to hear and for us to always know that this is never about checking boxes.
Right.
This is so much about helping to bring our audience closer together and bring our audience in and to bring our audience in. As you said, Connie, it really sure as heck helps to be able to see yourself somewhere in that ensemble.
Yeah.
Or to see it's in a large cast to kind of, to see how you might fit in if the production allows for that kind of broad spectrum of casting that's possible. There are some shows that are very specific about who plays specific roles and it's written into the script and that is unchangeable. Yeah. And that's one piece of it. And we try to curate those shows with other shows so that the kind of the overall diversity of the ensemble is represented in the whole season. Some shows require a lot of specificity, and some don't. That's part of the community that we're being able to that we're tasked to create. I think part of our mission is in doing that, in reaching the largest possible audience, as our mission statement says. It's important that we're able to show that on stage as well.
Yeah,
and
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
No, and Kim, like you were saying, and as we were talking about, if we can create those opportunities for a kid or an adult to look at that person up there on the stage and say, I can put myself in there and I could put myself in their shoes, and this is a show that is speaking to me, then that's a win for me. Just having that moment and sharing that moment with people is huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Well, what a great conversation about creating community. Kim and Connie, thank you for being a part of this. We're going to move into Act 2 for the next part of this. And up next, Bill George, who has spent his life doing community building here in the Lehigh Valley. He's been building theaters at the grassroots level, gathering artists, creating spaces where people can belong. So if community is our theme for this season, Bill lives inside that community.
Ready for an epic summer? Experience the Legends and Legacy season at PA Shakespeare Festival. It's a summer of unforgettable stories, rock and roll nights, and heartbreaking rivalries. Subscriptions to the 2026 Summer Theater Series are on sale now. Subscribe today at pashakespeare.org.
Welcome to Act 2. I have with me Bill George. Bill George is foundational in the Lehigh Valley theater community. Not only as the founder of Touchstone Theatre, Bill also has an organization called Kingfisher Theatre. Bill and I have been recently working together on figuring out how we can help unite a little bit of a fractured Lehigh Valley theater community.
A little bit
of
a fractured.
It's a little fractured, but we're working on some efforts to make that happen, and we can talk a little bit about that. But in the multiple conversations that we've been having this season on As You Mic It, we've been looking at talking with theater makers across the globe, and I wanted to take an opportunity to actually turn the lens to the Lehigh Valley. And when we wanted to do that, the first person that came to mind was Bill George. So I'm happy to have Bill with us for this episode. Bill, welcome to As You Mic It.
Hey, thank you, Jason. It's an honor to be sitting here with you, and I hope we say something interesting to anyone who might be listening.
I'm sure something is going to come up. Well, let's get started with just a little history for those people who may or may not know a little bit about you and what your connection is with Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah. Well, going back into the 60s, which is when I was drawn to Lehigh as an engineer and realized that was a mistake really quickly. And I got involved in theater. It was a very dysfunctional time for everyone, me in particular. My mentor died. I mean, that was a big deal. He, at Lehigh, he'd got me involved in theater.
Yeah.
And we were going to build a theater company at Lehigh in the style of Grotowski or Iowa Theater Lab, this kind of thing, very European experimental group theater type work. And when he died, I was suddenly at the age of like 24.
Yeah.
You get your MFA and you're like wet behind the ears and also facing the real, just real steep sadness about the loss of that vision.
Right.
I think that in theater making, it's not just what you see in the space. People have lives. It's all about, your family, your children, grief, people who've died, how to somehow make meaning in your life. And so for me, it was trying to reclaim that dream that he had planted in me. Lehigh didn't want to have anything to do with me. So I began just to work, to flail like a swimmer who doesn't know how to swim. Boom, boom, boom. You just flap your arms and kick. I did everything from, prison workshops to doing little gigs at Head Start, for 2-year-olds, hired by Macy's to do some, thing for their Christmas event. I mean, God.
Just gigging, right? Finding opportunities.
Gigging.
Right.
I think I earned maybe $5,000 the first year.
Yeah.
The second year we got up to $11,500, and that was with her, working as a waitress. It was really, I was too young to realize how incredibly desperate we were.
Well, you're still holding on to the dream was still feeding you at the time, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And eventually we formed a company. I was I've always been really interested in rebalancing, and that was part of the dream, rebalancing movement and word, or music and word and character, this whole space in which you can have music and character and idea and text, language. How does it all mix together? I mean, we talk theater, right?
Yeah.
And then you talk dance and you say, well, how did one get to be one and the other get to be the other? Where's the lines between them? How can you cross the lines? So artistically, that's kind of where I was playing around. And everything was experimenting with that. And this process of learning until you get to a dead end, and then you move over here. Formed Touchstone. And first it was People's Theater Company, but people thought we were communists.
Well, maybe you were a little
bit.
Which
we were. No, we weren't. But, I mean, we have a very strong populist attitude.
Well, you were a populist attitude in a steel town too, right? Like we're talking, we're talking Bethlehem, not as it is now, but as it was in the 1970s then.
Yeah. And I had gotten through the last year of college working night shift at the Steel.
Did you really?
Yeah. What happens is when you're working on a creative vision in a place over a long period of time, things begin to connect and reconnect over the years.
Right.
So in 1998, 20 years later, when Bethlehem Steel finally went down, and we were trying to create a piece in the community, which grew out of 20 years of street theater work and that kind of thing. But we developed the muscles to be able to work with really large groups of people. Well, sure enough, I'm playing a steel worker, just a couple hundred yards from where I did work. Yeah, it becomes really a rich, deep thing. And I think that when we made the building at Touchstone, in 1987, I think that was, which was, 12, 13 years after the death of my mentor. Mm-hmm. And we put his name on the little theater space. Yeah. I finally got it off my back, the sense that I didn't let him down. Yeah. Yeah. We talked about it, riding on a tractor, as he mowed his back lot up, up near Wind Gap. Maybe we could do this. Yeah, we could do that. It could be about play, and I could finally move on to be the kind of, well, wait a minute. That was our dream. What's my dream? Right. Who am I as an artist now? It wasn't until 1987, like 15 years into my professional career, before I could actually say, wow, Bill, what do you want?
That's a long time to carry somebody else's dream for a while, man.
Yeah. And I think that there's, some, pat myself on the back about that, but there's also just fear to actually think for yourself, think for myself.
Sure.
And how long it took to grow up to really, shit. Sorry.
Connie hasn't been able to use the edit button for a while now, so she'll be able to bleep that out. It's fine. So, Bill, I'm curious, can you help me paint more of a picture of what the Lehigh Valley, which wasn't called the Lehigh Valley, I don't think, at that time. What did the community look like from an artistic standpoint?
Well, yeah, I got my limited view of that. There was Guthville Playhouse, too, I think. I didn't make Guthville Playhouse. They did pretty good work. I still remember several of their productions. And then there was Pennsylvania Playhouse. And as you know, there was the amateur theater movement, which hit in the 60s and 70s. Right. And the evolution of theater in this country is pretty new. The National Endowment for the Arts didn't come in until like 1964 or something like that. It's been a long haul to get to where we are now. But there were the different universities, but there was no theater program at Lehigh. Mm-hmm. It was virtually non-existent compared to you've got really a lot of young companies now, women-led, a lot of devised work now. Devised didn't exist in the early 1970s.
But you were talking about creating work like Grotowski, and you've mentioned Meyerhold in the past. So this is all. These are devised work. Really, all feels like the grandchildren of that kind of work.
Absolutely. These were the gods then. These were the signposts. Grotowski, developing the attitude of an actor as saint versus prostitute. Mm-hmm. That whole idea of sacrifice and dedication. With Artaud, the idea that the theater that you're making is one gesture, right? But behind that is the act of doing that. Mm-hmm. It is the understanding that the piece of art that you're making is actually the result of another action that's happening. And trying to then realize that, as you know, in theater, it's collaborative. Mm-hmm. Nobody's free, to really actually be pure, right? Because you're working with other people, and they're going to screw your stuff up, or
improve it, Bill. They They could make it better, perhaps.
That would even be worse. Right? And the big thing for me, and when I was, with John Pearson, who was my mentor, he would do a piece for the playgrounds, right? Mm-hmm. Which is where we were starting, in a really raw place. Mm-hmm. He would do like a medley, or where you tell 3 stories at once: the betrayal of Geronimo by his people, a motorcycle gang going to a rumble, Cinderella, right? Put all those 3 together, just jump from scene to scene, and structure it on Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling Unto Death, having everybody die in the end at a party. It's like John, 75% of your audience here are children. They're under the age of 7, and they would hate us. God, they would hate us. Uh-huh. They threw stones at us and grass and bottles.
These are the children?
The children, yeah. They were so antagonistic. And
the most truthful audience we'll ever have.
Yeah, I know. It's really. And when he passed away, I said, well, you just can't do that to your audience. Right. That may be the kind of piece of theater you want to make, but the 3 legs of a stool, right? Yeah. It's the performers, it's the playwrights, and it's the audience. You have to include that. And so really what Touchstone became very much shaped by our audience. Yeah. Who is our audience? Where is our audience? What are our responsibilities to our audience? And all of a sudden it's about, you realize that your community is like one of the performers.
Absolutely.
The audience in theater isn't something that happens on stage. It's something that happens between what's on stage and the audience itself, in that empty space between the two. And therefore, the kind of audience you have, how savvy they are, what they're going through, what they're seeing, is shaping the work. Yeah. Well, finally, the theater company that my wife and I founded, Bridget and I and Lorraine Zeller, back in the day, were so sick of me.
I can't imagine why, Bill.
Well, again, I have a lot of authority issues, and I had been the producing artistic director, right. And because I didn't know who I was or what I wanted, it's very impossible to let other people run your life for you and be happy. So at least I was in charge. And but finally, I got out because I knew that either I would have to leave Touchstone or I'd have to fire everybody else. So I left. And
you left the organization that you co-founded with your wife and with Lorraine.
And she took over and did a lot better job than I did. I'll be the first to confess. She's brilliant and in many, many ways. Not perfect, but brilliant. So, wow, all of a sudden, what the heck am I going to do?
Right.
Well, I met somebody he was a designer at PSF. He says, why don't you audition? So I did. I've had some small roles in the Shakespearean plays. Yeah. And also was responsible for the apprentices. Okay. And the Apprentice Outside program, because that was devised. And I was more ready to help them put that together than I was to do Shakespeare. Right.
So this was the Green Show you're talking about. I think at the time it was called the Green Show.
Green Show, yeah.
Yeah, and so we call them the Young Company now, but the actor apprentices for a generation would do a pre-show entertainment prior to the evening performance. Yeah. And that was largely a device piece, and you were then responsible for kind of helping to put that together.
Yeah. I mean, the apprentices did the Young Company, they did all the work, they made it and everything like that, but I created a structure for them to put that forward. Yeah. Yeah.
And you said that you were more qualified to do that than you were to do Shakespeare.
Yeah, well, I mean, I studied Shakespeare in college and in graduate school. And, sure. But when you get out of graduate school, it's really, an MFA is like, I now know the ABCs, right? I can multiply and divide. But you're just at the very beginning of, at least I was, to actually be an artist. And Shakespeare is like unspeakably deep and rich and wide.
Yeah.
And, you walk into PSF and you've got people who really it's all they do. They've played Quince or whatever 8-9 times in different productions and have seen 15 other people do it. They know every beat. They know every pause. They can tell you 6 different ways this particular scene has been done. And it's really different. But the other thing at PSF, which I found hard, was to understand the culture. Because I was coming from a culture where everybody could stick their spoon into your pot and stir it a little bit. Hey, don't you think this could use a little more salt? No, I don't think so. But at PSF, when I went, which was during what Father Schubert's time, I didn't know what the I didn't know what the protocols were.
Right. What was the culture? The creative culture.
The creative culture.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I was non-union, and that scared me too. I'm like, does that mean I'm not an artist if I'm not union? And I don't think it does. But I had a hard time in the pecking order.
Sure.
And actors, as you well know, have, for the most part, big issues with believing in themselves.
Yes.
And that they have any value whatsoever, because in truth, they don't know how to do anything other than fake it. But then to be, in salt water instead of fresh water, was, it came to a point where I realized I'm never going to get something I can really sink my teeth into here. And I, it took me, 5 years to figure that out. But the greatest, to this day, I'm in very, very close friends with many of the students and the actors who I admire tremendously.
Well, there's so much, the theater community is so much about the relationships that are developed. So it's not just the work that happens in a single performance, but it's the kind of relationship and trust that gets built over time. There's so much of a sacrifice that artists have to have. What I'm hearing from you, I think it relates in a larger scale often when we're dealing with artists who are so passionate about the work and the economics in America of being able to support that work collide in such a way that what often happens is one has to pull away from the thing that their heart wants to draw them to because there's the larger economic need.
It's always a compromise. That goes back earlier in this conversation. It's always the audience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the audience. But then another piece of that is the economics. I was willing to live out of a cardboard box if necessary before I was married.
Yeah.
But then when I was married, I had to have a partner who was willing to put up with a lot of stress and not being able to know where the next money is. But then with kids, I'm not a great believer in sacrificing, everything for your art.
Yeah.
It's not like there isn't art in all of the work that you can find a way to continue to grow artistically and be excited and be sensible. Moderation in all things.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And but that's up to each individual to decide.
As we're talking about having to moderate and to modify and to think about how you can take the thing that you're most passionate about while also finding the responsibility to a spouse, to a family, to the people that you've helped bring into this world. How do you blend all of that together while also following that passion? That's a common theme that so many people, I think, continue to wrestle with. I'm curious I guess I'm a little curious about how you've continued to manage that. Also, I'd love to talk a little bit about, I'm curious about going back into the community too, about how your work stayed more connected to the community. I'd love to go back into this, to Steelbound, to the kind of creation of that piece and the work that kind of intersected with Cornerstone on that as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay, yeah. Well, going back to Steelbound, it's important that I be clear that I was just an actor.
Mm-hmm.
That piece grew out of Touchstone, and Mark McKenna was the artistic producing director at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mark McKenna, who's going to be at our festival this summer.
He's going to be in Coriolanus,
He's going to be in Coriolanus, yeah.
I'm very excited about that. And Mark had many of the best ideas that have ever shown up at Touchstone. And by his side is his wife, Jenny Gilrain, who was there. And she is also crazy. Smart's not the word, genius. About community and about including. They had just come back from Lecoq a couple of years before. My wife was producing artistic director at this time. I was in the thick of trying to find out who I was, sans Touchstone.
Yeah.
And Lecoq came and did a residency, a 1-week residency. I don't know if you know Jacques Lecoq. He's incredible movement theater teacher.
I know who he is. I'm not sure if our audience does. So.
French, many of the best theater companies in the world came through his school.
Yeah.
Mark and Jenny had spent 2 years in his program and came back. Then Bridget said, well, why don't you bring Lecoq here? And we did. And it was pretty impressive. They took him down to the Steel and he said, you should do a theater piece down here.
Yeah.
The space is like...
It's epic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the word Greek came in,
Sure.
the whole size of the space, the height.
Yeah.
You can pull in aesthetics that you can't in a small room, or even an ordinary theater. I mean, it's just like when the Steel was going down, 1995, 1996, Touchstone, because of its attitude about the community, said, well, what are we going to do? How can we help?
Right.
What needs to be done? And that's a lot of creating theater has to do with getting a sense of the Gestalt, the zeitgeist, and really like down in there and say, well, what is going to puncture this? What is going to, what's going to, allow the pain and the grief to come out? And that's certainly appropriate because when the Steel was going down, there was so much shame and anger and grief and fear. I mean, huge. The whole community, to a greater or lesser degree, was trembling.
Yeah.
And so I think it was Bridget's brother who suggested Prometheus Bound. Mm-hmm. So we started, and Mark and Jenny, I'm on the outside watching Touchstone function, and they got a bunch of the steelworkers together, and they did a reading of the Prometheus Bound, and
with the steelworkers,
and it was a failure. They did not like the idea at all. What has this got to do with us?
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know, you have to ask Mark whether it was before or after that, where we had this relationship. Again, it's relationship. Yeah. With Cornerstone, I had gone down to see them like 10 years before in West Virginia. Mark had brought them in to perform at Touchstone. We're building relationships like this podcast helps build relationships. Right. So he called Bill Rausch, one of my most loved persons in the world, as just what a terrific human being.
Yeah. And Bill Rausch at the time was artistic director of Cornerstone.
Right.
Then he went to Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and now he's running the Perlman Center in New York City.
Yeah.
At the World Trade Center.
Yeah. Shout out to Bill. And we did that. And we did the research. We did the story gathering. We did, and
this is Cornerstone's MO. For people who don't know, like Cornerstone, based out of Los Angeles, their modus operandi is taking a group of theater artists and going into a community and having conversations with the community about what's going on, where their anxieties, where their fears, where their hopes, where their dreams are, and then taking a piece of theater and with them creating a new thing. And so what you're saying, Bill, is that Mark kind of had the idea, Mark and Jenny had this idea that Prometheus would be a good piece with the steel workers because of the anxieties, and then brought in Bill and the Cornerstone Company to really unlock this whole idea.
Yeah. They had they in the area that they've been working, they had the technical skills developed, as well as reaching out to audiences, getting how you're going to get actors to be in this. It was like a 70-person cast. It was huge steelworkers, and basically they asked people to do it. They would just do it. And Alice and Carrie, they wrote Steel Bound. One of the really crucial things was that the folks at the Steel opened up the ironworks for us and hauled in that 27.5-ton ladle and paved a road to the place where the audience could sit.
Wow.
So we had, the number of people that were involved in making that happen. But you have to realize there was a tidal movement that was lifting everybody. And with the 20 years of work that we'd done, this is 1990, 70, 80, 90, over 20 years of work, and the roots we had in the community, and then connecting to these kinds of talents, Bill and Allison and everybody. And it was like catching a wave. It just took off. I'll tell this last story. The opening night, the beginning of that play is Cadillac drives in. I mean, a literal Cadillac drives into the space. They popped the trunk and they pulled me out of the trunk. I'm playing Prometheus here, steelworker. And another truck pulls in on the other side of this huge, 15 feet tall ladle. And there's a ladder going up there. And then they kick in this diesel welding machine. This incredible noise, and there's a sound, thunder supposed to be there, and they drag me up to the top of this thing, and they literally weld me to the top of this thing. Sparks flying. All right.
Wow.
Seriously. What?
Yeah.
But the night we were there, and CBS television was there, and Channel 9 from New York, and it happened to be pretty close to Labor Day, and it was a big national story.
Sure.
And it's thunderstorm coming in.
Oh boy.
This thunderstorm, and lightning is going.
Just what you want is lightning around a bunch of steel too.
Well, yeah. I mean, from a personal point of view, I have steel, handcuffs on, and
you're shackled.
I'm chained to chains that go up to the roof.
Oh my God.
Right? And back down where they can crank me up. Right. So after they weld me in at the feet, they crank me up. So I'm like, Jesus up there, which is appropriate given who Prometheus is.
Absolutely.
And this is what that event was like. The truth is, I didn't know whether the lightning and thunder was coming because of the play, or the excitement of the play was because of the lightning and the thunder.
Sure.
The sense of being connected to the power of the universe. And that, I didn't know what catharsis was until that moment. Wow. Yeah. And it was just like, wow, this is good stuff. And you just have to remember, okay, make sure you hit the right note when you start singing.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about Steelbound. I was just the actor, and I'm really grateful to have been able to stand in that place.
I think of it because, I don't think that I've shared with you, but I did some training with Cornerstone in my previous job, but did some training to understand, like, how did this mechanism work and how do we build community through art, and what the Cornerstone model is such a fantastic model. And I got to tell you, like, this was in 2019, I think, was when this training happened. They're still talking about Steelbound. I mean, we're doing this training in Venice Beach with people of generations moved on, and Steelbound is still kind of that example of the culmination of artistic work, community need, how all of that can kind of play together. It's still the example.
Yeah. There's, as Bill recently said, it's a high watermark. We had, worked with the community before, but, and you have audience involvement, or you create something for them, or there's direct address. But we had never been so bold as to take, 15 steelworkers and make a chorus, and then be able to choreograph them, and so they could move together, but in simple terms that they could execute. And aesthetic area that you're working is different, and it just really, it changed us as a theater company.
Yeah. Well, Bill, in the time that we have, because we've been going here for a while. It's okay. It's been a great conversation, and there's a lot here that I'm really happy that we're sharing. I would love to just kind of quickly turn the corner to some stuff that you and I are currently working on right now, to talk a little bit about some thoughts that we have about how, as you said, with Steelbound and with Touchstone, the decades of work that you've been doing, working in the community. Working with the community about pulling the community together. And now you and I are working on an effort on seeing how we can unite the artist community here in the Lehigh Valley a little bit. And it's just getting started, but I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about where we are right now and what we're looking to do.
Yeah. As you know, we both believe that the community is fragmented.
Yeah.
And that the one thing that I've learned from way in the beginning, when I didn't trust anybody, and I didn't want to leave the little square theater little box and just leave me alone in my cardboard box. And more I realized the audience and the health of the audience is essential to a healthy theater.
Sure.
And that's not just the people who show up for the show, but you realize, your community includes your professional community.
Right.
It's been a constant growing circle. You and I are, trying to bring folks together because it's fun.
It is. Yeah, it is.
It's fun. And for me, community and building unity in the community is a sacred task.
Yeah.
This goes back to, the fact that I'm interested in spirituality. And, yes, the individual is extremely important. It's just that, wow, if we can work harmoniously together, just this like flowers in the garden, man. Yeah. All the different colors, all the different approaches and styles. And wow, what we can learn from each other. All of the riches are there. Just open the door to look at each other and appreciate each other and find out, oh, wow, you've got 4 tripods I could use. I don't have to...
From the riches in the garden to 4 tripods.
Yeah, it's all one. It's all one. Yeah. And I think that that's the challenge. I mean, I'm 75 and I'm going to be gone soon. And
let's hope not.
If there's any meaning, in all of this art stuff, it's got to be about people.
Yeah.
And it's got to be about what makes us healed, what makes us happy and makes the load of life a little lighter, or helps us understanding the meaning. And the work that you and I are doing as we attempt to bring our theater community together, to work together and see each other and appreciate, is just about trying to make this place a happier, healthier, more creative place to live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to speak the thing out loud, Bill, you and I have been collecting and reaching out to, thanks to your years here in the community and your vast network, been reaching out to lots of other organizations who make theater at multiple levels, from the professional to the smaller companies who are working on a smaller, simpler budgets with a lot of volunteer effort and support. What we've found is that there's a lot of organizations, small organizations, large organizations, but all kind of working in their own silos. And what we're trying to do is bring them all together. So we're creating an opportunity to start with, a bit of a drama club of some organizations that we are literally calling the Lehigh Valley Drama Club. And that the first thing we're going to do is create an event on March 21, where essentially it's a mixer for artists in the area to come together and just meet each other. Get to know each other, so that we can start to bring the connective tissue together and start to make that alive, so that we can have a bit more of a sense of an organism, of an artistic community, as opposed to a bunch of different fractured entities. So we're going to be meeting in the Miller Symphony Hall in the Rodale Room from 3 to 6. It's going to be a bit of a mixer. March
21st. And if you're listening to this and wondering whether you should come, yes, you should.
Absolutely. Indeed. And we're going to have the Lehigh Valley Arts and Cultural Alliance is going to be sponsoring. They're having some snacks and some food. Touchstone and PSF are going to be sponsoring a drink ticket for some folks. We're going to have a cash bar there after that. And we're just going to have a mixer to get to know everybody and to see who else is out there in the community who wants to be a part of any of the creative work that any of these organizations are doing. This is an opportunity to meet up.
Yeah. It's the beginning, I think, of a very important initiative of the theater group community working together. Yeah, so much to be done.
Yeah, and like I said, we're just starting. We're just figuring this out. And we're looking to invite everybody to be a part of it so that we can all figure it out together as a community.
Yeah, just as long as they do what I want, I'll be happy.
It's that intersection of not trusting authority and wanting to be fully in charge. Bill, this has been such a great conversation. I know that we could go on and on and on, but I want to thank you for the time that you've given us for today. And thank you for being a part of this episode of As You Might It.
Thank you, Jason.
Legends, lovers, and timeless drama. It's all happening at PA Shakespeare Festival this summer. Join us for the Legends and Legacy season, celebrating our 35th anniversary. Subscriptions to the 2026 Summer Theater Series are on sale now. Get yours at pashakespeare.org.
For Act 3, we're going to talk a little bit about our first rehearsals and the building of community here at Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival in A Peek Behind the Curtain.
A peek behind the curtain.
Kim, do you know that's actually my voice? I just modulated
it.
Oh,
that makes me like it more.
Well, so Kim, if you can talk to us a little bit about the first day of rehearsals. What we're doing is we're bringing together for the first time in a room a disparate group of actors, many of whom had not worked together before. And we're bringing them together for the first time. And so, Kim, maybe you can talk us a little bit about that process of taking this group of highly skilled artists and turning them into a community.
So taking a step further out from that, I think that's what Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival does so well. Because we run in the summer, right? We have 12 weeks and we do 9 shows in these 12 weeks, but we bring together something like 400 people every summer. When you include our volunteers, when you include our actors, our designers, all of the different roles that people play throughout the season, and bringing all of those people to create one cohesive theater series over these 12 weeks is no small task. And one of the ways that we do it is we have a sort of welcome tradition, if you will. So the first time people show up, whether it's the first day that interns are on campus or it's the first day that head of departments show up, we do this thing called community agreements. That's the first thing we start with.
Yeah.
With an acting company, it's the same thing. We sit around the table. And oftentimes it's Jason, our artistic director, who leads it. And he sits and we read around the table this printout of these community agreements that happens to be a living, breathing document. So we can change it anytime. Yeah. We can change it throughout the rehearsal process. We can change it that first day when we're sitting there. But things like, let go of perfection and favor progress. Things like code of conduct, like how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to move throughout the room physically, but also intellectually and like with our hearts, right? With our energy.
Yeah, that's right. And those community agreements are a really wonderful way to start us being able to speak with each other in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really the big thing, because when we're doing these plays, we don't have the luxury of time to learn each other's rhythm and to learn how to communicate with each other. Sometimes we need to shortcut that. Yeah. And that's where these community agreements, I think, really come in handy, because it tells us what is a healthy way to communicate and how can we disagree.
Right.
And it really tells us what are good boundaries to set, in the bigger picture of things when we are in a creative space,
Yeah.
And so I love that. So that's the first thing that we do here at PSF to try and generate that kind of community. But what are some of the things that happen specifically from your experience as an actor? What happens to make that a community? Because one of the things that I'm thinking about is last year when we did A Raisin in the Sun, a lot of the folks just referred to each other as family, and how did they get from not knowing each other and not having worked with each other and everybody just kind of knowing Akeem to getting to that place where they are family?
Yeah. Well, part of that happens in the rehearsal room, working through these things. And being an actor, part of it is you're showing parts of yourself that you might not show normal every day in your life, right? It's vulnerable. You're being really vulnerable in front of these other people, sometimes strangers. Sometimes you're being quite intimate in different ways with these people. And so I think relationships are fast forming naturally. Yeah. But then Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival also has these really wonderful opportunities for people like to hang out. Everybody lives here. We live in the housing here by the theater, and you keep hearing us mention the fire pits. It's like a favorite part of PSF that people come out and they share a drink or a meal or whatever, and they sit around the fire pit at night and they talk about what happened that day, and they get closer and they chat. And it's a wonderful way to sort of build these relationships that are lasting. And so many, like, again, you mentioned earlier, so many of our PSF actors come back year after year.
Well, I mean, one of the big ways that they describe it is it's like summer camp.
Right.
It's summer camp and they want in, they want to be a part of that. I think about what those first moments are when everybody gets together. Yeah. And I spoke about this with Jason. I'm a relatively social person, but I'm really not good at small talk, and I don't like meeting people for the first time. And I just abhor all of those little, pleasantries. I'm just not good at it. Yeah. I want to be good at it.
I hear that.
But I keep thinking, how does it get from that awkwardness? Like, oh, I'm Connie, I'm a Scorpio, and I have a kid and a husband at home. So hi, how do you go from that to, we just made this amazing work of art and it's going to be lasting in the memories of people?
I think it's the collaboration. Yeah, I really do. I think it's the work. I think it's coming and seeing everybody, whether it's a hair and makeup person or it's a volunteer who are ushering people to their seats, or, when you're seeing people work at a really high level and everybody's in it to win it and everybody has the same goal. It's easy to connect with people when you have the same goal, when you have the same objective, right? Absolutely. And then we also have stuff like, I keep mentioning our volunteers. I love our volunteers so much. And there's so many of them who return year after year after year. Yeah. We have a couple of volunteers who've been here literally from the beginning, 35 years this summer. And they know all the history, and they know every actor who ever came through these doors, and they have stories to share. And they're a big part of the community here, and a big part of creating that sense of community. One of the things they do for us is we do a big picnic. Yeah. That the volunteers make the food and set up the tents and all of this stuff, and invite the entire company to come and share a meal together and hang out on the lawn. And it's this wonderful little tradition. We sometimes do a 4th of July thing. We have community day where everybody comes and eats from the food trucks and watches the young company perform and all of this. Like, we do try and create as much of a community feel as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of those things about the volunteer guild company lunch, the company cookout, is that we pick a date where we have the most people here on campus. You know, we pick that day in the middle of the summer that crosses over between the early season and the rep, and hopefully the Extreme Shakespeare. And we try and pick a date because the volunteers want to actively meet everybody in the season. And it's just such a gift that they give. That's really cool. every single year. And we just really welcome that. And we also try and do a small cookout on Independence Day on the 4th. And, you know, I think that's Jason's thing. He just ends up bringing a bunch of food, and we try and do like a little potluck lunch kind of thing. And it's really just a really fun way to break up.
It's fun to gather.
It is fun to gather.
It's fun to gather with people who have the same destination,
Absolutely.
The same objective. And then I think our audiences really feel that. And they become part of our community as well. Again, there are audience members that I know from back when I was a member of the Young Company years and years and years ago that I see now in 2025, and I'm sure we'll see them in 2026. 100%. And they'll come to the epilogue, or they'll come to the prologues, and we'll have a chat. And it's like, oh, our old friends are back. Every summer we get to be with our old friends again.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, and a quick shout out to Ariana Daniels. When she was cast for this upcoming summer's Romeo and Juliet and Moriarty, she had sent an email to me saying that, she's very excited. And yes, she talked to Jason, and she's looking forward to coming home.
Yes.
And that was so beautiful.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
For our artists, but also for our audience members. It does. It feels like coming home.
I love it. And that is a peek behind the curtain.
Sure is.
And that wraps up another episode of As You Might It. A big thanks to Bill George for joining us today. And a quick reminder, single tickets are now on sale. You can get yours by going to pashakespeare.org/tickets or by calling our box office at 610-282-WILL. That's 610-282-9455. For all of us here at As You Might It, thanks for listening, and we'll see you at La Buddha. Thank you for listening to As You Might It, a Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival presentation recorded on the beautiful campus of DeSales University. Our music is by Cedric Lamar, with hosts Jason King-Jones, Kim Carson, and Connie Behringer. For more information on our summer theater series, giving opportunities, tickets, and more, visit pashakespeare.org. Be sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you at La Buddha.
Behind every standing ovation is a network of patrons who know that theater changes lives. With tickets funding only half the cost, PSF counts on contributions to produce world-class theater, cultivate new audiences, and nurture future generations of artists. Give today at pashakespeare.org/support. Great theater is a collaboration both on stage and off.